So the international break's over and Arsenal return to action on Monday evening when Crystal Palace are the visitors here at the Emirates Stadium. We're going to be looking ahead to that game in this video. Just before we get started, if you are new here, you do enjoy some good Arsenal content, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you enjoy this video, please give it a like. And if you've got any comments at all to make about the game on Monday night, please drop them in the box below as well. It is great to hear from you guys. So this is the Arsenal versus Crystal Palace match preview. Hello, my name is Richie. Welcome back to my channel over and over again at the Arsenal podcast. After a lot of Arsenal women's content over the last week or so, we are back in Premier League action on Monday night. Of course, I say this game here at the Emirates against Crystal Palace. Of course, the return of Patrick Vieira. Looking forward to this one. This game actually also marks 40 years since my first ever match, which was on the 17th of October 1981. That was a home game against Manchester City, which we won 1-0. We'll come on to that maybe a little bit later. Coming up in this video, though, we are going to look at previous meetings between the sides. We're going to look at last season's game here. We're going to look at current form. We'll look at the team lineup, and we are going to predict the scoreline. We're also going to feature one player who has played for both clubs. There's been a few famous names over the years, hasn't there? So lots to get through. So let's get started. So in history then, Arsenal and Crystal Palace have played each other on 49 previous occasions in all competitions. Arsenal have won 29, there's been 15 draws, and Crystal Palace have won just 5. However, we've not won any of the last 3 meetings here at the Emirates against Crystal Palace. That goes back to January 2018 when we did win 4-1. We've drawn 2 and lost 1 since then. In fact, we've drawn the last 2. However, though, we have only lost 1 of the last 11 at home against Crystal Palace. That was in April 2019, that 3-2 defeat, if you remember, under Unai Emery. We've won 6 and drawn 4 of those last 11. However, we have only won 1 of the last 6 meetings with Crystal Palace, both home and away. We've lost 1 and drawn 4 of those games. Of course, that one victory was the last time we met, of course, back in May at Selhurst Park when we won 3-1. That actually ended a run of 5 consecutive meetings without a victory against Crystal Palace. Of course, last season's meeting here in January ended in a goalless draw. We just turned the corner in the season, haven't we, following some good results over Christmas. Crystal Palace came here in good form as well. It was quite a tight game, not much to choose. We were maybe slightly fortunate to get a draw in the end. Crystal Palace missed 1 or 2 good chances, particularly from Christian Benteke, and we did hang on for a goalless draw. In fact, it was the first goalless draw between the sides at Arsenal since 1998, which was a 0-0 draw in the FA Cup. So we're hoping there's going to be some goals on Monday night. So in terms of current form then, under Patrick Vieira this season, Crystal Palace currently sit in 14th place in the table. They've only won 1 of their 7 league matches so far. That was, of course, against Tottenham at Selhurst Park, of course, a game that we all enjoyed. However, they have drawn 4 and they've only lost 1 of their last 6, and that did come with 3-0 defeat at Anfield last month. Away from home, though, they've only picked up 1 point, although that did come in a London derby away at West Ham in August, where they drew 2-2. Although they haven't won any of their last 3 matches, which has seen them pick up just 2 points. Of course, in terms of our current form, then, we are unbeaten currently in our last 4 Premier League games, which has included 3 victories, which has moved us up from bottom of the table to 12. We're still not scoring that many goals, though. We've only got 5 in the Premier League all season, but 3 of those did come in our last home game here in the Premier League against Tottenham. Of course, there have been many players over the years that have played for both Arsenal and Crystal Palace. Of course, the 2 most famous ones are Ian Wright and Kenny Sansom. We've done plenty of stuff on those 2 players on this channel. Others in recent years that have played for both clubs include Marian Shamak, Emmanuel Adebayor, Philip Senderos, Matthew Flamini, and going back a little bit further, Eddie McGoldrick as well. But the player I wanted to feature today is one who's a really famous Arsenal player, of course, that is George Graham. Now, Graham was born in November 1944 in Bargedy in Scotland. He did start out his career as a striker at Aston Villa in 1959, where he scored 2 goals in 10 appearances before moving to Chelsea in 1964. At Stamford Bridge, he played 102 games and scored 46 goals and did win the League Cup with them in 1965. He moved to Arsenal a year later, 1966, and during his time at Arsenal, he did switch from a striker into a midfield player, goal-scoring midfield player. He did win the 1970 Fairs Cup with the club before, of course, going on to feature in the double season in 1971. In the end, he left Arsenal for Manchester United in 1973, having made 308 appearances for the club, scoring 79 goals. He only stayed at Manchester United for a year and a half. He scored 2 goals in 46 games, which included their relegation from the First Division, before he then spent 2 years down on the South Coast at Portsmouth, where he scored 5 times in 51 league matches. In 1976, he moved to Crystal Palace, and there in 2 seasons there, he played 44 league games for Palace, scoring 2 goals, and that was both in Division 3 and also in Division 2. He did help them to promotion in 1977. After ending his career in England, he did move over to America, played for California Surf in 1978, played 17 times for them. He also won 12 caps for Scotland between 1971 and 1973 and scored 3 goals. Of course, after his playing career ended, George Graham did get into coaching, initially at Crystal Palace in 1978. He then moved on to QPR in 1980 before taking over as manager of Millwall in 1982. And of course, 4 years later, in May 1986, he came back to Arsenal to take over as manager. And we all know what happened there. 7 trophies that he won, of course, in 8 years. Before, of course, he was banned from football for a year. He did come back and took over at Leeds in 1996. And then 2 years later, he was back in North London, up the road at Spurs. He did help them, of course, win the League Cup in 1999 before being sacked in March 2001. So the player today I'm featuring, who played for both Arsenal and Crystal Palace, George Graham. So in terms of the team lineup, then this is how Crystal Palace have been lining up in recent games. It's Guaita in goal. Their back four has been Ward, Gay, Anderson and Mitchell. In midfield, the 3 have been MacArthur, Mihailovic and Gallagher, and the 3 up front have been Ayew, Edouard and Zaha. Of course, Benteke as well as an option from the bench for them up front as well. In midfield, they've got Hughes and Koyate, have also played quite a lot. Elise, of course, who came off the bench to score in their last game against Leicester, and Jeffrey Schlupp as well, of course, who also came off the bench to score in that game as well. In defence, other options are Klein and Tompkins as well. So that's the Crystal Palace team I'll be expecting for this game. In terms of Arsenal, we've come back from internationals with a fully fit squad, so I'm not expecting too many changes from the recent game. So I think it's going to be Ramsdale in goal. I think the back four will be Tomiyasu, White, Gabriel and Tierney. I think the 2 in midfield will be Partey and Lokonga. I think Ødegaard will be in the number 10 position, and then in the front 3, I think it will be Saka on the right, Smith Rowe on the left and Aubameyang through the middle. So I'm not expecting any changes from the side that drew away at Brighton. Of course, Alexander Lacazette can still come off the bench to add the goal threat should we need some goals later on in this game. At Gabriel Martinelli as well, surely he's got to be due some minutes. He's just not played enough this season, has he? So we have got a lot of options. Maybe we're a little bit short in midfield, missing Granit Xhaka. Of course, it was this fixture, wasn't it, 2 seasons ago, the famous incident where, of course, he lost the captaincy and almost ended his career at Arsenal. But he'll be missing in this game, of course, this week. So they're the lineups I'll be expecting for this game. In terms of a score prediction, then it's a difficult one to call, isn't it? Obviously, Patrick Vieira coming back, he's going to be desperate for his Crystal Palace team to get a result. I believe he's using his Crystal Palace job as a way to eventually become Arsenal manager. Whether that will be next season or in a couple of years' time, I do feel as though this is something that may well happen if he does a good job at Palace. He certainly had a decent enough start, hasn't he? I'm sure he's going to make his team up for this game. They've got some quality players, as we know, certainly in forward positions, and we're going to have to be at our best. Of course, we do have a decent record overall against Crystal Palace, but maybe not quite so much in recent years. Certainly here at the Emirates, they seem to have a habit of picking up a result, don't they? I think it's going to be a tight game. I'm not expecting there to be too many goals. We are a lot more solid defensively these days, and for all Palace's improvements, for all their more attacking style under Vieira, they're still not scoring an awful lot of goals. I can see this being a tight game, but I think Arsenal may just shade it. I think it's going to finish Arsenal 2, Crystal Palace 1. So stay tuned to the channel then. There's lots of great stuff coming up. Later on tonight, I've got a Crystal Palace fan, Jay, coming on. He was on the channel last season. We're going to be talking about the Patrick Vieira effect, looking ahead to this game as well, some previous meetings between the sides as well. That'll be coming up later on this evening, so please stay tuned for that. And then, of course, tomorrow night, be the watch along. The kickoff's at 8 o'clock. I'll go live about 7:45 of all the team news, and then, of course, full match commentary and analysis. And then, of course, it's a busy week, isn't it? Because on Friday, we've got a game against Aston Villa. So we'll be looking forward to that one as well. I will be trying to speak to an Aston Villa fan as well later in the week, building up to that game. We will, of course, have the Tuesday clinic. We'll be back as well, where we'll be looking back on the Crystal Palace game, looking ahead to Villa and all other news in the world of Arsenal. That'll be going live at 7:30 on Tuesday. So loads coming up on the channel. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like as well. Please share the content around, and please let me know your comments in the box, what your lineup would be against Crystal Palace. What are you expecting? Looking forward to seeing Patrick Vieira, of course. It's a shame I can't be there, that the game was moved to a Monday night. Would have been a great way to have celebrated my 40th anniversary of my first game. Hopefully it'll be a similar result that we managed that day back in 1981, a 1-0 victory against Manchester City, where it was a goal from Rafael Mida, which will always be a big moment for me to look back on. Of course, 1981 was the last season where we scored less than 5 goals in our opening 7 games. We'd scored 4 that year. So a few similarities there maybe with this season. And in the end, that season we did finish 5th. So, you know, there's still hope that maybe this season isn't over and done with yet. We've still got a lot to play for. Please join me for the watch along tomorrow. And I say look out for the opposition view with Jay, the Crystal Palace fan as well. All that's coming up on the channel. In the meantime, of course, as always, as we head towards a big game, another big game for Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners! So finally you're up and you're over and over and over again. Jesus said, Paddy, you're singing so well.